The Galactic Council chamber was bathed in the soft, shifting glow of 1,000 bioluminescent orbs. Delegates from every major species in the Gnome Galaxy sat in uneasy silence. The air was thick with tension, an unfamiliar weight in a place, meant for diplomacy and control. This was not a routine meeting. This was not a dispute over trade routes or border skirmishes. This was something far worse. The Zerth diplomat gripped the edges of the data tablet, his scaled fingers pressing hard against the smooth surface. His voice, though composed, carried an edge of uncertainty. It had been cycles since the last human transmission. The chamber stirred with uneasy murmurs. Cycles was an eternity in interstellar relations. Human communication had never been steady, but it had never fully stopped either. Even in times of war, they had sent messages, threats, demands. Even in peace, their presence had been known, but now Earth itself had gone silent. A representative of the Eldra Dominion, an amphibious being with slick, translucent skin, let out a dismissive croak. He claimed humanity was simply ignoring the Council, that their arrogance had driven them to isolation. Others were not convinced. The Keanu, a creature of rigid exoskeleton and piercing compound eyes, reminded them that all broadcasts had ceased, not just diplomatic channels, not just military signals, everything. They had not merely stopped speaking to the Council. They had stopped speaking to each other. A new fear crept into the discussion, the possibility that humanity had fallen. It was a comforting thought to some, an unnerving one to others. The Ashth Marauder, a member of a warlike species that had once tried and failed to conquer human colonies, rumbled deep in his throat. If humanity had been destroyed, then the question remained, by whom? There had been no signs of war, no distress calls, no last stand, just silence. The Grand Speaker, an ancient being whose species had guided the Council for millennia, finally leaned forward. His voice, soft yet commanding, cut through the chamber like a blade. There are only two possibilities. One, that humanity had been wiped out. Two, that humanity had chosen to disappear. The second possibility was the one that terrified them the most. The Zellan Warden, a crystalline being whose form flickered with shifting colors, spoke cautiously. Humanity did not retreat. They had survived plagues, wars, and catastrophes. They had conquered frontiers no other species dared to explore. What could have driven them to abandon their own home world? A scholar from the Eldari archives spoke of old legends, whispers of threats that lurked beyond the mapped edges of the universe, beings that did not conquer, did not negotiate. They simply arrived, and civilizations vanished. The older scoffed at the idea, calling it superstition, but the Keth envoy did not seem so sure. Humanity had always been the unpredictable variable. They had defied expectations at every turn. If something had finally broken them, what kind of force could do such a thing? The Grand Speaker exhaled slowly, his expression unreadable. It does not matter what they believed. What mattered was the fact that Earth was dark. Humanity, once a force that demanded to be acknowledged, was now an unanswered question. If they are gone, the Council needs to understand why. If they are still alive, they need to understand what they are planning. A holographic display flickered to life in the center of the chamber. The last known transmission from Earth played in grainy static. A human scientist, eyes sunken with exhaustion, stared into the recorder. They had not addressed it to anyone. They had simply left it behind. Their voice was hollow. They said they had tried everything. They thought they had more time. There was a long pause before they spoke again. If anyone finds the message, they should not follow. The recording ended. No one moved. No one spoke. It was rare for the Council to experience true silence. Even in moments of tension, there had always been the hum of whispered conversations, the rustling of movement. But now, there was nothing. The Marauder broke the silence, his voice lower than before. A fleet should be sent. Immediate investigation is necessary. The Zerth diplomat was quick to argue. The message was a warning. Humanity did not want to be found. The Marauder disagreed. If they were in danger, the Council needed to know what had threatened them. If they had left, the Council needed to know where they had gone. And if they were hiding, they needed to know why. The Grand Speaker raised a hand, bringing the debate to an end. A single reconnaissance team will be sent. No fleets, no warships, no aggression. The Council cannot provoke something they do not understand. The decision was made. The mission would begin. But the message still lingered in their minds. Don't follow. And yet, they would. Because the only thing more terrifying than what they might find was never knowing the truth. The reconnaissance vessel emerged from the void at the edge of the Sol system, its sensors sweeping across the vast emptiness ahead. The crew, an elite team drawn from multiple species, had prepared for many possibilities. They had expected resistance, automated defenses, patrol ships, or at the very least, signs of human activity. Instead, they found nothing. The system was eerily quiet as the ship moved forward. The familiar golden glow of the sun bathed the desolate silence. No distress beacons, no lingering transmissions, no signs of movement. The usual traffic of human vessels, known for patrolling their borders with an aggressive presence, was absent. Even the deep space relays that once pulsed with streams of communication now drifted inoperative, their signals long since faded. Mars came into view first. The planet had once been a symbol of human ambition, its surface marked by sprawling colonies and towering structures. The team expected to find ruins or remnants of a final struggle, but there was no destruction. The power grids were still active. The dome CI stood intact, untouched by conflict or disaster. Automated systems continued their routines. A lone rover moved across the barren surface, following programmed instructions that no longer had purpose. Everything was preserved, yet lifeless. Approaching Luna, the unease deepened. The moon had always been a critical stronghold, fortified with defense stations and planetary shields. It should have been bristling with activity. Instead, the orbital platforms remained locked in position, fully operational but abandoned. Every scan yielded the same result. No biological traces, no heat signatures, no signs of struggle. The fleet that once protected the system had not been destroyed. It had simply ceased to exist. Earth filled the viewport. Its vast oceans and sprawling continents appeared as they always had. There were no impact craters, no burning cities, no visual evidence of catastrophe. Yet something was profoundly wrong. The biosphere was intact. The atmosphere remained perfectly balanced. The ecosystems had not collapsed. Everything should have been thriving, yet there was no movement beyond the wind and the automated systems that still ran without direction. Descending through the atmosphere, the ship's scanners ran. Another sweep. Cities stood in eerie silence, their towering structures unbroken. Streets remained lined with parked vehicles. Billboards flickered with advertisements meant for an audience that no longer existed. Airports held planes waiting on runways, their flights long since scheduled but never taken. The planet was not abandoned in chaos. There were no crashed ships, no scattered possessions, no visible signs of people fleeing in panic. It was as if life had simply stopped. The team sat down in the heart of one of the largest cities. The air was breathable. The weather was normal. The environment felt untouched, yet something deeper was wrong. No decayed bodies, no remnants of organic matter, no bones or skeletal remains. It was not just the people who had vanished. All biological traces of humanity were gone. Not a strand of hair, not a skin cell, not even microscopic residue. It was as if the species had never existed. Venturing into buildings, they found everything, preserved in perfect condition. Stores remained stocked. Hospitals still had power. Offices held personal belongings left as if workers had intended to return. Time had not claimed these places. Dust had not settled. No natural processes had taken over. The world was immaculate, undisturbed since the moment of departure. A data terminal flickered to life at their command. Systems responded instantly. Their internal clocks still kept time. There were no emergency warnings, no records of an evacuation, no explanations. The global network was still operational, but eerily empty. It was as if every trace of human presence had been deliberately erased from history, leaving behind only the infrastructure of their civilization. Further scans confirmed the impossible. The genetic markers of humans were absent. Every other living thing on the planet registered normally, from bacteria in the soil to plant life in the forests. But human DNA was missing at a fundamental level. If a species had gone extinct, traces should have remained. Fossilized bones, preserved in time, but there was nothing. One of the operatives discovered a dormant transmission, logged and buried deep in a data hub. The file was intact but corrupted beyond repair. It was the last recorded signal sent from Earth before the silence. No source was listed, no intended recipient. Only a single fact was clear. The message had been sent out intentionally before everything stopped. The team reviewed every possible scenario. Mass extinction events left scars, wars left wreckage, natural disasters left evidence of destruction. This was different. It was not a catastrophe. It was not a collapse. It was removal, not just of the people, but of their entire biological imprint on the planet. It was as if they had been rewritten out of existence. A final scan detected something beneath the surface, a weak energy signature pulsing from deep underground in one of the most isolated regions of the world, Antarctica, the only place where an active anomaly remained. The team prepared to move. Whatever had happened to humanity, the last traces of an answer were waiting there. The ship adjusted its course, cutting through the cold atmosphere toward the frozen wastelands of Antarctica. The energy signature, buried deep beneath the ice, was faint but stable, the only active anomaly on the entire planet. It pulsed with a rhythmic consistency, artificial yet unlike any known human technology. The crew had no choice but to investigate. The descent was turbulent. Powerful winds swept across the desolate expanse. White storms raged across the surface, concealing the barren land beneath layers of unbroken ice. The region had once housed multiple research stations, yet none responded to hails. Scans showed the structures intact, fully powered, but devoid of life. There were no distress signals, no emergency beacons, only silence. It was the same pattern repeated across the planet. The facilities had been left behind as if their occupants had stepped out for a moment and never returned. Landing near the strongest point of the energy signature, the team moved carefully, their footsteps muffled by the thick snow. The research post nearest to the source stood untouched. Its doors sealed, its systems still functional. Inside, the air was crisp, temperature controls maintaining optimal conditions. Equipment sat in perfect order. Data terminals active and awaiting input. The last logs contained routine observations. Weather reports, geological scans, nothing that suggested an imminent crisis. Then abruptly the entry stopped. There were no warnings, no final messages, just an empty gap where the next records should have been. Beyond the station, the signal led deeper into the ice, far below the surface. A scanning probe confirmed the presence of a vast subterranean structure hidden beneath layers of glacial mass. It was not a natural formation. The readings indicated advanced engineering materials beyond standard human construction. The entrance, nearly a kilometer away, had been carved with absolute precision. a seamless passage descended into the unknown. Structure had been buried intentionally, concealed for purposes no longer clear. Moving inside, the walls shifted from compacted ice to smooth, dark alloy. The material absorbed their scanners, muting reflections, distorting signals. The corridor was long, sloping downward in a gradual descent. No markings, no inscriptions, no indication of its creators. The atmosphere remained breathable, stable, against the crushing weight of ice above. Deeper within, the passage opened into a vast chamber. Towers of intricate machinery extended along the walls, pulsing with an internal glow. A network of conduits fed into a central platform where the energy signature emanated in steady pulses. Unlike the surface, where everything had been left intact but lifeless, this place remained operational. The machinery functioned without oversight, running processes that had continued long after humanity had vanished. Approaching the platform, the team discovered a terminal embedded into its surface. The interface was not human in design, but the systems responded immediately, shifting to accommodate their presence. Streams of data flickered across the display, fragments of information, distorted records, layers of encryption. The language was unfamiliar, but some elements remained recognizable: dates, coordinates, patterns repeating across multiple entries. The log stretched far beyond human history, cataloging events that had unfolded long before the first civilizations had risen. A deeper analysis revealed something unsettling. The records contained references to humanity long before the species had developed spaceflight, long before they had built cities or harnessed technology. Every stage of their existence had been monitored, recorded in meticulous detail. But there was more. Entries that extended beyond human history, beyond known time frames. The last entries contained predictions, precise down to the moment when Earth had fallen silent. It was not a record of the past. It was a timeline leading to an inevitable event. One of the team members uncovered a final transmission embedded within the system. Unlike the corrupted logs found on the surface, this message was intact, preserved with deliberate care. The file played automatically, displaying an image of a human figure standing in the same chamber, wearing an expression of solemn finality. The voice was steady, deliberate, carrying the weight of something beyond fear. "They are calling us back. We have always known this day would come." The figure paused, eyes unwavering. "We were never meant to stay." The message ended abruptly. No explanation, no further details. Only the lingering echo of the words. The weight of the statement settled over the team, deeper than any revelation. They had faced so far. There had been no war, no extinction, no disease or catastrophe. Humanity had left by choice. The absence had not been forced upon them. It had been planned. The team examined the final sequences of data. The system's last recorded activity matched the moment of Earth's silence. Energy levels had spiked across the planet, concentrated around key locations: cities, settlements, space stations. Every trace of human presence had been erased in a single coordinated event. There had been no struggle, no resistance, no hesitation. A final scan of the structure revealed its true purpose. It was not a bunker, not a research facility, not a remnant of an ancient civilization. It was a gateway. Whatever had happened to humanity, they had not simply vanished. They had departed, moving beyond the reach of those left behind. The readings confirmed what the message had implied. The humans had not been taken. They had answered something greater, something calling them elsewhere. The machinery began to react to their presence, energy levels fluctuating. Systems recalibrated, as if recognizing that outsiders had now seen what was never meant for them. The pulse of the signal grew stronger, resonating with a frequency beyond comprehension. The team had no choice but to retreat. Their ship ascended back toward the void. The last remnants of the transmission faded, leaving them with only unanswered questions. As the ship left the surface, the scanners detected something chilling. The energy signature had begun to change. Its signal shifted beyond measurable parameters. The gateway had been reactivated. Whatever had called humanity away had not closed the door behind them. It had only left it waiting,